Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the very last video about my favorite underrated horror movies. So, we're finally down to the end of the pile, people. We are finally down to the end of the pile. And we'll start things off with a movie that I actually did a little video about a long time ago. And that video was seen by the director of the film, and the director reached out to me and thanked me for noticing that he was trying to do something important and big and cool with the movie, which a lot of people didn't pick up on, and honestly it wasn't sold right, so you know, what are you gonna do? But regardless, if you haven't checked this movie out yet, fuck do you need to. The New Daughter. The New Daughter starring Kevin Costner. I saw this for the first time on Netflix, I believe. And yeah, I got this on Blu-ray because it's just a fucking fantastic movie. It's done more in the style, you see Kevin Costner and you think it's going to be like an Americanized horror movie. But the truth is that it was directed by a guy named Luis Verdejo. Luis Verdejo is the guy, of course, who emailed me and just, reached out to me and said thank you for giving me a fair review. Most people didn't give it a fair review. Luis Verdejo is a Spanish horror director. So we're going to get that out right now. He is a Spanish horror director. He was the guy behind the Rec series, or at least some of the movies in the Rec series. So if you want to get a sense of the kind of Spanish horror director he is, the kind of Spanish horror that he likes to do, there you fucking go. That's the kind of stuff he does. So that's the kind of movie this is, very much. It's not necessarily found footage. It's definitely not found footage, in fact. But it has that Spanish horror feel to it, in that there are a lot of scenes that are left kind of ambiguous, and you don't know exactly what's going on, and you're left asking questions. And a lot of people don't like that. But honestly, I feel like that makes for a really good movie, because if a movie leaves you asking questions, then again, that's something that you get to chew on for a long time. And if it's especially a good movie, then chewing on something like that is a good thing. It's kind of like with Prometheus. Prometheus was a really fucking fantastic movie that had you asking a lot of fucking questions at the end. And allowing you to chew on a movie that fucking good is a good thing. New Daughter does something very similar in that it allows you to chew on, well, what happened there? Is this what happened, or is that what happened? And it's a good enough movie that it warrants being chewing on a little bit, So, yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a movie about, well, it combines the archetype of the family moving out to the middle of nowhere and moving into a creepy old house, and it combines those elements with the elements of the ancient evil kind of thing, you know what I mean? So you know how in something like The Ruins or something like that, how in those kinds of movies they have these underground dwelling fucking creepy creatures that may have been human at one point but are no longer human, kind of cave troll kind of things. Something out of a fucking D&D match, a terrifying D&D match, So they combine those elements with the elements of the archetypal, going out or moving out to the middle of nowhere to a creepy house. So you've got the haunted house feel, but you've also got the other kind of creepy, what the fuck is going on here, ancient evil feel to it. And I really dig the fact that they fucking combined those elements, because it really works very fucking well. The ending is kind of ambiguous, like I mentioned before. I really liked that about the movie. I felt like it added some depth to it, and it really made it fucking fantastic. And it's exactly what you would expect from Spanish horror, which is probably why a lot of people didn't get it. Americans, we want to see a beginning, middle, and end. We want to happy ending typically. So when you don't even know if you got that sometimes, it can get kind of frustrating. But it really shouldn't be frustrating. It should be something, again, that you're chewing on, that you're thinking about, that's, gnawing at you a little bit, and it's really making you appreciate the movie more. So, yeah, just try to appreciate this movie, because it's fucking fantastic. It is deserving of your appreciation. Next up, we have I believe this is also a Stephen King story. I think it's a Stephen King story, but I'm not sure. If it's not a Stephen King story, I think it's inspired by a Stephen King story. It was written and directed by an M. Brian King. I don't know what to tell you. All I know is that I really like this movie. And that would be Night Train. This is a movie starring Danny Glover. You know me. I love me some Danny Glover. Danny Glover is fucking awesome. And this is... if you remember back in the 40s and 50s and stuff like that, you had movies like Strangers on a Train. You had movies that entirely took place on a train. Stories that entirely took place on a train, because the train was still relevant back then. The train is not necessarily as relevant of a form of transportation today as it was back then. It's not as many people use the train today as they did back then. So, might not be necessarily something that people are interested in, you know what I mean? But regardless, this actually does the trick. Actually, I would say that this would make a good combo with Snowpiercer. If you like Snowpiercer, then Night Train is going to be right up your alley. It's a lot slower of a movie, I would say, but it's definitely a suspenseful kind of movie, and it also takes place in a really cold environment, where cold is a threatening thing. I like a good meaty mystery story, and Night Train offers a nice meaty mystery story. You've got the aspect of morals in here, and are these people doing what is morally right, or are they just doing what they need to do for themselves, or what they want to do for themselves? You know what I mean? So it feels very much like a Twilight Zone episode, except for an elongated Twilight Zone episode. It's an hour and 30-minute Twilight Zone episode. So yeah, if you're into Twilight Zone kind of stuff, if you like that kind of creepy atmosphere, Night Train is right up your alley. I think it's completely underrated because most people don't know about it. So yeah, Night Train. Check that one out. Next up, we have both Insidious and Insidious 2. I liked this series so far. I have not yet seen Insidious 3. I do really want to see Insidious 3, obviously, because I liked the first two. The first time I saw Insidious, I felt like it was okay, but I didn't like it that much. And then I saw it again, I watched it again with a more attentive eye, and I realized there are some aspects of this movie that I really fucking enjoy. And they're really aspects that are pulled from real life, sleep terrors, night terrors. You'll see all about it in The Nightmare, which was my last, well, not my last, it was one of my last picks for what do you call it, for Netflix picks. You can go watch The Nightmare on Netflix right now. It is a documentary about sleep terrors, night terrors, and stuff like that. And you see a lot of the elements of that in this movie. I mean, I didn't pick up on it the first time, but after watching it again, I hadn't watched The Nightmare yet, mind you. But after watching it the second time, I realized, wow, there are a lot of elements to this movie that honestly remind me of other movies, other fucking classic great horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, you know? And I really dug that. And I particularly liked it because the second time I watched it was after I had watched Insidious Chapter 2. This one came up on Netflix, and I remember having watched this one and thought it was okay. So I was like, well, I'll give Insidious 2 a try. And I was blown away because I realized, holy shit, this movie takes place directly in relation to the events of the first movie. So I like that, because most horror movies, most horror sequels do not directly correlate to the previous movies. You know what I mean? The sequels are not always related to the previous movie. Whether it's a horror movie or any other movie, sequels typically do not always fucking directly correlate. You know what I mean? So when they do, I always like that, and I particularly thought it was fucking awesome the way that they made that work in this movie, because there are a lot of ways that it fucking directly fucking ties to the first movie. There are events that happen in the first movie that you're going, what the fuck, and they're explained here in the second movie. So I thought that was fucking awesome. I thought that was amazing. I love when they do stuff like that. So yeah, highly recommended. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Insidious 1 and 2 here. And yeah, honestly, I don't know why people don't like these movies. But I do know that there are a lot of people who do not like the Insidious movies. So I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with them. I like them. I don't know what to tell you, man. I feel like they're fucking awesome. Last but not least, that's right, we've finally come to the end of my favorite underrated horror movies. Last but not least is one that I know I'm going to have contentions on, because I'm pretty sure I've actually seen people in my comments, not only my comments, but also people who visit the, Saturday Night Insanity and whatnot. I've seen people who are fans of mine and who are followers of mine and who, follow some of the stuff that I do. I've seen them speak out against this movie. They don't like this movie. So I'm sure that a few of you are going to completely disagree with me here, but, well, that's why I saved it for last. Because I knew it would be a controversial topic, but I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to say it. The Rob Zombie Halloween 2 was fucking excellent. Oh my god, I know I'm going to get so much hate. I know I'm going to get so much hate, but I love this movie. I picked it up because I watched the first one on Amazon Instant Video. And I really liked it. I didn't feel like it was the greatest thing ever, right? But I wanted to see the next one, and they didn't have the next one. But they did have this up there for like $5. So I was like, $5 for the sequel? Well, the first one was alright, so why the hell not? And I checked out the sequel, and honestly, in a lot of ways, I like the sequel even fucking better. Particularly Brad Dourif's role in this. Brad Dourif, oh my god, he's such an amazing actor. We already knew that, right? I mean, I saw him in Deadwood, right? And it seems like ever since Deadwood, he's just been going all fucking out to put out his best possible fucking performance. And I love that, because he is just showing off some major acting chops lately. And I feel like he's probably always had those chops. It's just that lately he's really fucking like going for the dramatic side of things. And he really does get really dramatic, rightfully so, in this movie about a lot of things. And it's very fucking depressing, it's disturbing, it's really like creepily well done. His acting in this movie is just really fucking well done. So if I had to say there's one element of this movie that I love the most, I would say that's it. Brad Dourif is an unimpeachable actor in this movie. He's fucking fantastic. He's amazing. You cannot say one bad thing about Brad Dourif's role in this movie. You fucking know you can't. Even if you don't like this movie, you have to admit Brad Dourif was fucking amazing in Halloween 2. So, shove it. The story, a lot of people didn't like the story, but I felt like it was pretty interesting. They added a little bit of like a supernatural element to it. And yeah, the thing about it is it could have been supernatural, it could have been not so supernatural. They left that kind of open for interpretation. And kind of like with the new daughter, some people are going to like that, some people are going to hate that. Just depends. I personally like open-ended stories. I like having something to chew on. So the fact that Halloween 2 gave me something to chew on is a good thing. It's a good sign. And a lot of the elements, I felt like a lot of the elements from this movie reminded me of H2O, but they took all of the best elements of a bad movie in H2O and made this. And of course it had elements of a bunch of other aspects of the Halloween story, right? But that being said, the elements that they did take with where, you know, he's in an asylum essentially, really worked well. They especially worked well for Rob Zombie's version of this character and for his version of this story, because his is very much like, I don't know if he's necessarily writing a love letter to the killer or anything like that, but he really does try to help people to understand that the monsters that we create in these stories are based on archetypes that come from people who are real people, who really had like very strong emotional issues and very strong mental issues, very disturbing mental issues, definitely. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't deserve any respect or anything like that. You know what I mean? These are real people. It's easy to vilify people and make them out to be monsters without trying to understand what happened to them to make them the monsters that they are. And that's what I like about Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, because maybe it's not necessarily socially acceptable to think about that kind of stuff or to, you know, give any kind of thought to that kind of stuff, because fuck those guys. They're insane lunatics who killed people, right? But I don't care if it's socially acceptable. It's something, honestly, that we need to be thinking more about in this society. We need to be focusing more on stuff like that, because we can't just vilify these people. When you vilify, like we've seen what happens when you vilify these people. When you vilify these people, nothing gets done to help them, and it just keeps fucking happening over and fucking over again. So, in a lot of ways, I felt like there was like an important social message behind this movie that you really didn't get from the other Halloween movies, and from Rob Zombie's Halloween movies in total, I should say. And yeah, you see that in all of his horror movies, actually. This aspect of like a society that doesn't understand what led these people to live the lives that they live, you know. It wasn't just in Halloween movies, it was in every horror movie that he's done. So, yeah, I dug it. I really like this movie. I like Rob Zombie's horror movies because he does that. He touches on that kind of stuff. He makes you think about the stuff that is uneasy to think about. It should make you feel uneasy. And isn't that kind of a point? It's one of the points of watching a horror movie, is to feel uneasy. So if you're feeling uneasy, then he's doing something right? So I would say to people who don't like this movie, even if you don't want to give it another chance, think twice. Think twice about what Rob Zombie's trying to do here. Think twice about what's actually going on in the movie. And just think twice about whether or not it was actually as bad as you think it was. Because it really wasn't that bad. It was actually really fucking good. Get right down to it. That's all I gotta say about that. Well, there we have it. My favorite underrated horror movies. I'm all done. That was the last video. I finished. It's over. Oh, it's over. Oh my god. So, with that being said, thanks for watching. Catch you later from a new location, more than likely. Peace.